Hello, welcome to Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Kate Harper of the 61st District in Montgomery County. If you live in Montgomery County, chances are you've driven on the Turnpike, and many of our neighbors drive it every single day. Currently, the Turnpike's northeast extension is being reconstructed and widened between Mid-County and Lansdale. I thought it would be helpful to get an update on this project, as well as some information about decision-making behind the placement of sound barriers, nighttime construction, all electronic tolling, all those issues. So the CEO of the Pennsylvania Turnpike, Mark Compton, is here today to answer my questions. And we'll be discussing unpaid tolls and the addition of all electronic tolling and what that means to the Turnpike. So Mark, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Representative. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Well, you know, I always like to let my guests know a little bit about I like my audience to know a little bit about my guests. So Why don't you tell us, where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? How did you become the CEO of the Turnpike?
Sure. And grew up in central Pennsylvania. My father was a Methodist minister, so we spent a lot of time in the central PA area. I graduated from Altoona High School in the midwestern part of the state.
Big transportation hub, Altoona.
Indeed. Railroads, and more railroads. Then I spent some 6 years in government, and then actually got out of government and didn't think I'd return. Worked for a highway contractor in your area, and then a good friend of mine became transportation secretary and asked me to join him. So I spent 3 years or a couple years over at PennDOT, and the last 3 years I've been at the CEO of the Turnpike, and have enjoyed every day.
Okay, so it seems as though CEO of the Pennsylvania Turnpike's a big deal. Weren't we the first turnpike in the nation, and didn't we just celebrate a very big anniversary?
Indeed, Representative, indeed. Last year, October 1st, marked 75 years that the Turnpike, the world's first superhighway, America's first superhighway, came into existence. And that first stretch was from Irwin, near Pittsburgh, and then ended in Carlisle.
You know, and I think the usage of the Turnpike has changed a little. It used to be that you'd get on the Turnpike to go visit somebody far away. But at least in Montgomery County, it seems to be a commuter road, operates sort of like a beltway around the city. Would you agree?
I do agree. I do concur. And in your neck of the woods, if you will, busiest part of the Turnpike, there's no question about that, is the busiest part. And you're right, we're seeing a real increase in commuter use, which is daily use throughout the week.
So I know that you did a big project between, let's say, Plymouth Meeting and King of Prussia to widen the Turnpike.
Right.
And that, from my perspective, and I use the Turnpike all the time to come back and forth to Harrisburg, is beautiful. Done, beautiful,
yes.
Great. But now you're working right in my district on the Northeast Extension. What's that project all about?
Sure. So what we're doing, and in this area, again, it's the most heavily used 4-lane section of our system, with about 65,000 cars per day traversing on a daily basis. So what we're doing, and that piece of roadway was built back in 1955, believe it or not.
That's not that long ago.
No, it's not.
It's about how old I am. Never mind. Let's not go there.
No, it's not. But what we're doing is we're taking that and we're calling it a full reconstruction project. So those 4 lanes are being turned into 6 lanes, with much wider shoulders and medians, about 12-foot shoulders, if you will, with all new walls where they're called for, sound walls and guide rail. So we're again adding to that modern highway that you see in what we call 20 to 26. A milepost is now being added from 26 to 31.
And 31 is the Lansdale interchange, if I remember correctly.
Indeed, that's about where it ends.
Well, I have to tell you, because the Northeast Extension runs up the spine of my district, I have driven on it many, many times. And the part that you haven't finished yet is 2 lanes in each direction with a Jersey barrier and no shoulder at all.
Right.
Right. So if you're in the left lane and you have a blowout or something like that, you really got nowhere to go.
And you think about a 1955, so you think about an early 1950s design with the amount of vehicles that were projected to be on that roadway now. We've got its useful life out of it, and it's truly time to start reinvesting and making sure that we have that modern highway that we've come accustomed to in the southern part of the system. So that's what we're doing. And first of all, I want to thank the patience of you and your constituents. I know construction's messy. I know it's not fun to live near. I know there's a lot of noise, but we're almost through it in this section. And
so why do you do it at night? People ask me, and I tell them it would be impossible during the day. Is that about right?
It is, and it's our commitment to our customers to work real hard to maintain 2 lanes of traffic in each direction.
So we can continue to use the road while you're doing this major reconstruction.
Exactly, and we work really hard to make sure access is granted through the system itself. But for some of those walls that we talked about, sometimes you can't access that through our roadway, so you have to go into the neighborhood to get to the system, to get to the project. So there are some, we'll call it short-term pain in the long history of the construction cycle. But if you're living near it, I know it doesn't feel like it's short-term.
So let's talk about those walls. Now, in some part of the Turnpike in my district, some people got sound barrier walls, and some actually got berms with grass on them, and some get nothing at all. How does the Turnpike decide where to put the walls, where to put the berms, that kind of thing?
Sure, and through our design process, and one thing to make clear is we really look at the noise analysis whenever you're adding capacity to the system. So at times we'll get calls when we're doing a mill and pave, if you will, or just kind of replacing some of the asphalt, and they're saying, hey, you guys are in there, let's do walls. Well, that doesn't, under their federal standards, kick into the noise analysis. When you add capacity, that kicks into the noise analysis. And the federal standards that we use, and we don't deviate from that, because you can imagine on a 550-mile piece of roadway, if we deviate from that, then every part of the system would require walls.
Are you required to follow the federal standards? I thought you used toll money.
We use toll money, but the 76 makes us an interstate, the interstate designation. So as part of the interstate designation, we follow the standards of the federal highways.
Okay. So go ahead and explain what those standards mean in the real world.
Sure, exactly. So they look, it's a formula-driven process, and it looks at things like density. And I get a lot of calls, hey, my house is worth X amount. This should require a wall. Well, it doesn't go by the value of the homes. It's the amount of cluster.
How many houses would be benefited by the wall?
Exactly.
As opposed to the price of a house benefited by the wall.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And that's a hard thing for a lot of our neighbors on the system to
particularly
understand.
In the Blue Bell area, where there are lots of nice houses near the Turnpike.
Not cheap real estate by any means. So there's a cluster analysis, and then it takes a look at how the sound is coming off the system, and then how that would hit that area. You mentioned some berms. Sometimes when there's right of way available, and understanding there's basins that have to be constructed too. So that right of way is used for basins, and it's used for walls. And the basins obviously are for our stormwater management requirements that we meet with our local partners. The analysis is made is what will happen to that noise, and where does it hit those cluster of homes. That's really the determining factor of how walls and where walls. And there's a lot of head scratching going on whenever you look at one side of the road that has a noise, that the noise analysis meets the criteria, because if it meets it, we need to buy the real estate to put it in the right of way. And if it doesn't, then we do not put on that part of the
Now, I know
project.
these walls are very expensive. Do you have any?
The old rule of thumb used to be $1 million per mile.
And it's more than that now.
I'm sure it's more than that.
So that's a lot of money.
Price of construction. And you think of the 6 miles that we're widening, and again, from 4 lanes to 6 lane, and their structures. So every price tag is different, but that's roughly a $200 million project for those 6 lanes that the low bid number was that's doing that project. And
you follow the public bidding rules. Whoever's the lowest responsible bidder gets the job.
Sure.
But it's a big, expensive job.
It's a big, expensive job. And the structures and the walls and the basins, the cost of construction is not getting any cheaper.
All right, so let's talk about something that was a surprise to me, but I've since learned watching all this.
Okay.
Which is that sound walls don't actually absorb the sound. They sort of remove it or keep it or put it up in the air instead of out. Is that about right?
You're exactly right. It's a displacement of sound, and where it sends the sounds as it comes off the system.
Right. So actually, the people who are bothered by the sound may not get relief depending on where they are.
That's exactly right.
With respect to the wall.
That's exactly right.
So I put a wall right here, but if I live over there, the sound may just travel right over the wall and hit me anyway over here.
Right, and if there's two walls, there's the sound that bounces from one side to the next, and then to your point, up over it at times. So it's not an exact science, and I understand living near us is not always ideal.
Well, you know, the funny thing is, it's ideal from a transportation standpoint. The turnpike's a very important part of the transportation system. When there's an accident or a blockage on the northeast extension, the parallel routes are all blocked up with traffic. And I'm talking about Skipack Pike and Sumneytown Pike and Welsh Road and Morris Road, because you're really carrying a lot of traffic every day that would otherwise be on those local roads.
Yeah, you think about displacing on average about 65,000 cars per day, which is who uses that part of the system. So you think about how that displaces onto those local routes, and there's no question whenever that area is tied up, what it does locally is, and I've been through those roads many times. You're exactly right.
Okay, so one of the things that's important in Montgomery County, Bucks County, and the general burbs in general is along the main stem of the turnpike, we have some aging industrial parks or business parks that are trying to attract new tenants. And the communities are fully in support because they're great tax rateables for school property taxes and things like that. And I understand the turnpike has some exciting plans along the main stem with respect to Easy Pass.
We do.
So what are you talking about?
Well, what we opened in January, if you take a look at the very eastern part of our system at the Delaware River Bridge, there's now a gateway that we call cashless tolling, that as you enter coming from New Jersey, it's our first entree into all electronic tolling. And what that means is at that gateway, you can no longer pay cash.
What does that mean? Oh no, I have to get an Easy Pass?
Well, that's our preferred mechanism for our customers to use. And in that area and in that corridor, over 80% of our customers choose to use Easy Pass. But if you choose not to get Easy Pass, the other mechanism in which you pay your toll is through what we call toll by plate. So the owner of that vehicle, usually on a monthly basis, will get an invoice with the amount of trips it had traversed through that interchange.
So you take a photograph of the license plate, you run the license plate, and the owner gets the toll.
That's exactly right. That's exactly they get the bill in the mail on a monthly basis.
And then they can pay it. Now I do know this. We tried to incentivize Easy Pass, so I think if you pay by Easy Pass, it's actually cheaper, isn't it?
It is. It is, and just about it's the same as our cash price, which is on average about 35% less expensive to pay by Easy Pass than what you pay the cash price, and in this one point where you get the toll by plate price.
Okay, so why are you thinking of going all electronic tolling for the whole kit and caboodle of the turnpike? Why are you thinking about that?
So there's a lot of reasons why all electronic tolling makes sense on a system like ours. And if you look around and take at the national footprint of who else has toll authorities and agencies, a lot of those agencies are converting, and the new systems that are coming online, like the ones down in Maryland, are using all electronic tolling. And there's a couple key reasons why. Back when the system opened 75 years ago, economic was really the driving factor as to why the turnpike opened. All electronic tolling is really in that same vein. Montgomery County, the local planning groups under the leadership of the commissioners really have been looking at about 6 different access points onto the turnpike system. Mm-hmm. One in particular is called Lafayette Street.
So to take people into Norristown.
Right into Norristown. So if you don't have all electronic tolling, you have to put the tolling apparatus around that interchange.
It takes a lot more land.
It takes a lot more land, and then the tolling apparatus itself also has to be part of that. So where if you take the gantry approach that we have on down at the Delaware River Bridge, if you can extend that every so miles, now when you do an interchange, you don't have to do what we call the trumpet design. So the trumpet design means everything from all directions has to filter into to a toll booth. Right. If you have the gantries on the main line, you can do more of a traditional diamond type design, which is what you see on 95.
Which is less land, uses up less land?
Uses up less land, less costly. So back to Lafayette Street, if you have to do the trumpet design, it's about a $90 million interchange. If you don't have to do the trumpet design and can do the diamond, which is different accesses down into Norristown off the system, it's roughly a $50 million
Right,
price
and I
tag.
can tell you because I did represent Plymouth Township right there. There are houses in the area. You're going to need to take more houses and more.
It's more right away.
It has to be acquired if you need more space to put the toll booths in.
You do, and so if you think about that, we have for us, it's still about traffic, and it's still about revenue into the system to pay for, so it's all toll driven.
Because you don't really get gas tax money?
We don't for the main line. Now we
Okay.
do work on the Act 61 projects, which are mainly the projects we were asked to take over back in the 80s by the legislature from
Right.
PennDOT, which are the Western Extension. Those are off our balance sheet for the main line, but that's the Southern Beltway and
So it's
Montfayette
a
Expressway.
user pay system, basically.
It truly is.
Right.
It truly is. So if you take a look at the cost benefit analysis for us, we can't come up with the $90 million at the amount of traffic that it would generate. But at $50 million, it makes it an attractive project for us.
So it works.
It works. It performs for us.
Well, hold that thought.
Okay.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll return in just a moment.
Did you know that the chamber of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives contains a painting depicting the 24 hours of the day? Located in the center of the ceiling, the mural titled The Hours was created by artist Edwin Austin Abbey. This wonderful masterpiece charts the setting of the sun, moon, and the many stars that grace the heavens. 24 maidens, who each represent an hour of the day, begin each day in light and gladness and ends in solemn drapery carried on still shoulders. Now you know.
Did you know the Avenue of Flags presentation at Indiantown Gap National Cemetery has over 500 casket flags? Among the flags displayed are Commonwealth, territorial, and military flags. The flags are tied to 20-foot poles spaced 40 feet apart on both sides of the main drive of the cemetery. It takes about 2 hours to set up and take down all of the flags. Volunteers are encouraged to help with this task and must be at least 13 years of age. All of the flags are donated to the Avenue of Flags by families of the deceased. Now you know.
Welcome back. I'm State Representative Kate Harper. My guest today is Mark Compton from the Pennsylvania Turnpike. We've been talking about the Turnpike's plans and what they're doing and sound barriers and all that. But let's go back to electronic tolling for just a moment.
Sure.
Now, I have to tell you, constituents have told me they just love that thing that allows them to go from the Northeast Extension to the Blue Route by driving underneath a gantry and not stop and pay a toll. They love it. But, what does that mean for the employees who are currently collecting tolls?
Sure. We've spent a lot of time with the employees, what we call our fare collection employees, who've been with us in many cases a long time. We have one gentleman who was with us at the 75th anniversary who collects tolls at Lansdale Interchange. He's been there for 60 years. You imagine being there in that toll booth for 60 years. When we had him at the 75th, he said, Compton, I need a raise. So Chester's a great man. And there's a lot of Chesters out there. There's a lot of folks in those toll booths who have given us and made it their life work to be the touch point for customers, and we're proud of them and the work that they do. So what we've done, and our process and timeline is in such a manner that we did the Delaware River Bridge, and then we're going to move west to the western extensions, which are still not a part of our mainline system. And we're going to test the system out west to where we don't have near as high easy pass penetration as we do in the east. So how does it work? How does the process work? And then once we get those studies back and we have an understanding, we'll have a better timeline for the main line. But what I tell all the new employees coming in is we want to make sure we're open and transparent, that all electronic tolling, as it relates to their career, will occur on the main line. And they need to prepare for that. So what we've done is we've extended some continuing education benefits for all employees in the affected classes
So they can get retrained to do something else.
Yes, yeah, and our goal, and that's at about $5,500 per year, which is the IRS, sort of the IRS limit. And for them, we've allowed them to take advantage of that training for anything that they could currently apply for our system, which is to work in other parts of the organization.
Maybe get your CDL, driver's license, and drive a truck or something?
And a lot of folks have chosen to do that to then be eligible for positions that open up on the maintenance side. And then we've also opened it up for them as the folks in that side only to get even work that would be outside of our system. So we had a young lady that I remember when we did these town halls said, I can go back and finish my nursing degree now. And
so they can get a job outside the Turnpike or a job in the Turnpike if there's one available.
Exactly, and I tell them to make sure they take advantage of that every year, because that's an annual amount that they can take advantage of. And now with the understanding that they've got years to plan, there's opportunities to take those classes to set themselves up for either within parts of our system. Labor and Industry has been a really good partner for us already too, and we sort of work with them, and we call it sort of a three-tiered approach. One, other areas of the Turnpike system that you can work on. B, other areas of state government that you can work in. And they've got a lot of folks in state government who are trying to attract different employees as well. PennDOT as a partner is one. Driver's license centers is one.
Sure.
So sitting for civil service
Similar
tests.
jobs.
Yeah, so sitting for civil service tests and those sort of things. And then third, outside the system altogether, getting them ready for private sector employees. So we do believe we have an obligation as the process plays out and as we learn how our timeline is evolving, to keep them aware. And a project like this and a system this large, it's happening, but it's not happening tomorrow. So the idea with time,
So time to get ready for it.
yeah. So the idea of time is really what we're trying to tell them, that you're not going to be able to finish your career if you have 10, 15 years to go in this space. So
Well, I think change is always hard, but basically you're saying that the all-electronic tolling will allow you to put slip ramps in places that currently don't exist because there's not enough room for them.
Right.
It'll run the system on a more sustainable, cheaper basis.
Right.
And I got to tell you, the motorists who use the Turnpike as a commuter road love it.
And
The fastest toll taker in the world is not as fast as that gantry.
You're right. And the one part too is, especially down in the southeast, 80% of our traffic are choosing Easy Pass as their preferred method of payment. That means 20% are paying cash. But at those interchanges, that's a recipe for disaster when you have 80% who are progressing through, hopefully at the posted speed of 5 miles an hour, which is a little tough.
They're not progressing through at the posted speed, but you can keep
dreaming, right?
Yeah, right.
So they're getting through the interchanges, and with the other folks who are stopping and having to look for those cash lanes to get to route
Right.
into. You've been through the Norristown interchange, you know what that's like at rush hour. So it's really trying to understand
You have
that
to know where you're going before you get there.
you
Because
do.
it gets so congested that it's impossible to change lanes. It's very
Indeed,
hard.
and once you're committed, you're sort of committed. So trying to get us past all of those safety issues too. That's the one thing that keeps me up at night.
Okay, so the Turnpike did approach me, and I put a bill in, House Bill 1782, which deals with people who don't have Easy Pass and don't pay their tolls.
Yes.
Although I guess it could work on Easy Pass people too. It would basically, penalize people who get $500 in Turnpike tolls, and it would affect their registrations. And some people have said to me, I can't believe they're going to take my registration for not paying a toll. But it's an awful lot of tolls. I mean, I don't know what the average toll is. It's got to be much, much less than $500, right?
Right. Average toll is about $5 per.
$5.
Yeah.
So you're driving for months without paying.
Indeed you are.
So why do you need this? Why do you need this bill?
First of all, I want to thank you for your leadership in this area, so thank you for your support. This is a little bit like the spilt milk at the grocery store, if you will. When the customer that spills that milk, the rest of us pay for it, is how it works. And at the Turnpike, it's no different, really. It's the idea that those, and again, it's 99% of the folks who are paying the tolls have to absorb the cost of those who aren't. So it gives us another tool in the toolbox, if you will, for our collection efforts. And our collection efforts, we're pretty proud of how we're able to collect. Basically, if you take a look at revenues, are probably around $940 million per year right now. So we have to go get about $33 million.
I heard 33 million was out there on the street, though.
That's the amount of money you have to go after.
Just think of that. That's almost the slip ramp in some places.
That's right.
So you can't not collect the money.
Right. So in that effort, we're pretty good at getting about 30 million of that. But that's after you have to work at it, and then you write off about $3 to $4 million every year. That's right off. Even that's
people from other states?
It's a nice paving project.
Yeah, it is a nice paving. What about people from other states? They blow through Pennsylvania once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
And can you get them or no?
As a percentage of traffic, that's pretty high for us, being the Keystone State, of the amount of folks that we have out of state.
Absolutely.
When you have this discussion with Florida, they're a little less inclined to work on what we call reciprocity agreement. So the legislation will also give us ability to enter into reciprocity agreements with other states, which gives us the ability to, and then on an individual basis, negotiate with those states to be able to get the toll violators from their states as well.
To be able to access their license information and things like that would help you make sure that they pay as well.
Exactly, and give us the teeth to give them the teeth for them to withhold the registration. It's a registration hold until they pay that, which presumably would not be able to get the car inspected, the vehicle inspected, until that lien was paid off.
But this would only kick in at a very high number.
Very high level, very high number. And if you take a look at the other states who do extensive work in all electronic tolling, most of those states do have this as a tool in the toolbox. Very rarely is it used, but it's the understanding that if you'd have to, you'd have it.
All right. Another slip ramp project in our vicinity is into the Fort Washington Business Park. We have a slip ramp on one side, but not the other. So you can get there, but you can't get home again.
Right.
If you live in Bucks County, anyway. No, you have to snake through and get on the main stems. But these, I understand there's an easy pass, a lane, or a slip ramp scheduled for the other side, going eastbound. So I think the residents should realize that to the extent that we can get the traffic in and out of these business parks without accessing the neighborhood roads, that's probably a better thing.
It really is. It really is. And I can't tell you how many times, whether it was my time at PennDOT or whether it's my time here at the Turnpike, is when the governor's action team are looking at projects or have prospective officials from different private organizations who really take a hard look at what our transportation corridors look like, where the investment are going, and what those direct access in and out. Because as you can imagine, every turn equates to $1 for them. So the more we can do this, the more we're more competitive against the other states on the economic development side, and that really at the end of the day benefits all of us.
Well, from my perspective as a House representative who's been on Transportation Committee my whole time here, these traffic issues really do impact the local level, and it's important to look at the Turnpike, SEPTA, PennDOT as a system and try to make sure all the little pieces are working, big pieces, are working together. So it's very important that, and I know that the Turnpike Commission does work with PennDOT regularly so that you don't work at cross purposes with each other.
Yeah, and I would tell you in my career in and out of government, but mainly in transportation, I don't think the working relationship between the department and the Turnpike has ever been stronger. We're looking at how we can partner on things like the way in which we bid our projects, because it's the same customer base. If you think about it, same stakeholder base.
Willow Grove, PennDOT, and the Turnpike are arm in arm at that interchange, which includes major state highways.
We are, and we also have in two different areas where we're actually sharing facilities. Because there was an old adage that where the orange was and the yellow wood were, no two should ever meet. Because of but we've really changed that, broken down some of those walls, and literally broken down some of those walls, and we're sharing stockpiles and co-locating at different locations. Really working hard to try to draw circles.
Efficiencies are important, especially in this economy.
Indeed.
But that's all the time we have for today's program. I'm State Representative Kate Harper. If you need assistance with any state government matter, feel free to contact me at my local office or through my website. That information will be shown in just a moment. Thanks for watching. Join me again for Legislative Report. My guest, Mark Compton. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative.